Hey everybody! So this is the first video I will have done from my new digs in Long Island. So here we are. This is my new spot. You can see that the jaunty fox is not here yet. I hope he will be here. Maybe I can just hang him with a little bit of like tape or something. I probably won't put a nail in that door, but I really hope that the jaunty fox can join me in all my recordings, because I felt like he was like my unofficial sort of recording guardian. So jaunty fox is not here, but I am here. I hope you will accept me in lieu of me and jaunty fox. And this is my bookshelf back here. You may get to see some of my witchy books for the first time. And they're not all witchy. Some of them will be like academic. I imagine if you really zoom in, you can see some of them if you care to do that. But yeah, this is the new place. This is our stairwell. We have half of a house, so we're living in the back half of a house, and now we have a little yard out here and a deck. So I'm going to be doing all sorts of witchy things out there. We also have a little like Harry Potter cabinet right here. So we don't keep Harry Potter in there or any like children. So just so you know, we just keep books and games and store things in there, but it does feel pretty magical anyway. So yeah, here we all are. My last video got a ton of views, which was like a little surprising for me. I don't know if like maybe I was just doing something that was like more interesting to people or what. But like definitely comment on the videos, and I definitely appreciated the comments that I got last time. They were really great. So for you guys who are like watching and commenting, you are my life. You are my everything right now. You're really like driving me to actually make videos. But yeah, definitely if I'm doing something right, let me know. Let me know what it is. Yeah. So anyway, here we are. And I wanted to make another kind of personal video today about how and why I came out of the broom closet, and actually also out of the closet as bi, because I did those two things at the same time. So that's why in the title of the video it's out of the broom in parentheses closet, because I did both kind of at the same time to a lot of people. So yeah, I guess first I just want to make a disclaimer, which is that obviously, this should be obvious, but if it's not, I just want to make this disclaimer. No one has to come out. Like, you don't owe it to anyone. You don't owe honesty about any aspect of your life with, to anyone. And I don't even think it's necessarily a matter of honesty. I thought about this a lot because I really like to be open with people. But it can be about safety, and both the LGBTQ plus community and the pagan community, pagan witchy community, have been, pretty unsafe at various times. And depending on how you identify, like if you're a person of color, obviously that could be like way compounded for you. So like, just nobody has to come out. Just disclaimer. And that's in most coming out resources that I've ever seen. So I think it's like pretty out there. I don't think like I'm the first person to say this or anything, but I just feel like it needs to be said. And also because there's so much pressure around that, like I think nobody needs to make that like more pressure. So anyway, with that out of the way, I guess I wanted to say some of the reasons that I don't know, it's hard to say the reasons because I'm not in that headspace anymore, but some of the good things that I got out of it. So I guess first I'll say a little bit of background about how I came to sort of recognize these two things about myself. So it's a bit of an, I guess, easier story to tell, though a more windy story with the pagan witchy identity. And I've told a little bit of that before, like about how I went to England and read Women Who Run with the Wolves and walked the moors and did tarot out on the moors and all of that stuff. And I've also talked about my childhood, which was really like troubled in terms of religion. But I guess putting it all together a little bit, I always was both very devout religiously. I was always interested in religion, even when I was a kid and when I was, raised evangelical Protestant. I always was interested in religion, and practiced some religion. But yeah, I would say I was always more interested in the mystical aspects of religion. I, had some really transcendent experiences as a kid, confessing at the altar. If you've ever read the book Villette, I'm actually, I'm writing right now about how my experience kind of mirrors some of the experiences she has, in terms of mental health and, like confessing as this like real, I guess, turning point or meaningful thing. And so that was really meaningful to me. I do feel like I had some form of like grace that I was like getting from that, and some sort of contact with the divine for sure. But it was also married to this really dogmatic, evangelical Protestant religion, which, didn't really have any way to explain what was going on with me other than like sin. And that was obviously not very healthy because, for anybody who's dealt with a mental health crisis or issue, like it's not a healthy paradigm to think of that as sin. You do feel separate from God and from other people in the same way that you might if you were, if you had a lot of guilt, if you really had something on your conscience. But the difference was for me that I didn't really have anything on my conscience. I just thought that I should be ashamed of myself all the time. So, yeah, that was obviously really unhealthy. And I, at some point realized that I either had to accept that my religion was kind of broken for me, or that like I was broken and I chose myself. And so, yeah, that I think was the first sort of like empowering step. And then I became UU after a couple of years of sort of flirting with like more liberal Christian denominations. I became a Unitarian Universalist. I started going to a church in Austin, which I dearly love, and I still watch their services online sometimes, even though I don't live there. I feel like I'm like a bit of a lurker. But yeah, so a friend recommended that I try it out, and I tried it out, and I really loved it. And yeah, I think that was a good place for me for a while. But as I've said before, it was more open. There's this like UUism. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this. You probably won't have if you're not UU, but if you are UU, you might have heard it. That UUs recognize one God at most, and that is like I think true for a lot of UUs. I think a lot of us are not necessarily I don't want to say like religious, but, the divine is not always talked about. Like you might go through a whole service without, God mentioned. It can be a bit of a kind of like a bomb going off kind of, and it's not always like that cool to talk about Jesus. I mean, we do, but we talk about it in a very specific, we talk about Jesus and Christian things in a very specific way that is not tied to the dogma of hell or anything like that. And that brings me to the thing that I think UU really did for me, which is that it sort of showed me once and for all that hell was not real. Like I don't believe in it anymore. And there are dark nights, where I'm like, oh God, what if there's a hell? And like, everyone goes to dark places, but like, I don't genuinely believe in that anymore. And that was a really good step for me. And it showed me also that it actually kind of did the opposite for me. It helped me to see the possibility of more gods. I think for a lot of people, it sort of takes God away from being this scary sort of guy in the sky kind of thing and makes him more of a concept, more of something to almost like an atheist concept of God, where it's like, which I know is an oxymoron, so don't come at me for that. But what I mean is just sort of almost a secular understanding of religion, like just being a good person and kind of taking things from mythology and stories, taking what you can, but not necessarily thinking of God as like an actual personified being. Certainly not like what a hard polytheist would think of their gods as. UUs don't think of, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but I think a lot of UUs may not think of God as real in that sense. Or if they do, I think they certainly don't, like worry about him or worry about like the agency of God or God coming in and doing anything or whatever. So it's a really positive thing in most ways. But yeah, for me, it actually showed me that it showed me that there is a possibility of more gods, that, if one person doesn't have the right answer, then maybe everybody could have the right answer, or maybe, maybe nobody does. And so who knows? Or maybe maybe it's just not about right and wrong at all. Maybe, it's just about what's right for you. And that it can all be true in various ways. And I think that gets into some really sticky bits with my polytheism, which I haven't really figured out yet. Like, I don't know if I think that, I know that I respect all religions and everyone's religion, regardless of what it is, or lack of religion. But, I don't know, if I believe that gods are real in the sense that hard polytheists believe in them, that they have agency outside of humans, or if I'm more of a soft polytheist who believes like that archetypes, are a big thing, and that gods are sort of similar when you look at different cultures. A lot of the same archetypes show up. So yeah, that's a bit of a sticky wicket for me. I don't really know if I believe that gods are like as real as hard polytheists believe they are, but at the same time, I don't like, you just opened that up for me. It just made it to where nobody had to be right or wrong anymore, and we could sort of all just freely explore religion, and come to find out what we authentically believed for ourselves. So yeah. And okay, with that, I guess I will say, so that's pretty much the whole story of how I became pagan. And the story of how I figured out that I was bi is like shorter and weirder, more complicated, but much shorter, which is that I had crushes on girls growing up. And then when I was in college, I had a crush on a particular girl, and that sort of really lit a light bulb up in my head. Actually, years after that, sort of lit a light bulb up in my head and said, like, okay, there's something about you that this is not just her. This is like, this has been happening before, and you still sort of like girls. And it lit a light bulb up in my head, and that was pretty much it. And I always knew that about myself, but I didn't really, and so here's where we come to the coming out part. So, my friends always knew both of these things about me. Like, if I feel comfortable enough with someone to call them my friend or my partner, I'm going to tell them these things. But my family did not know. And that is where we come to coming out of the broom closet and coming out of the closet. I knew it was going to be an issue because my family are not the type of Christians who are like respectful of all religions. They are much more the type where it's like, this is the one right way. If you do not have this right way, then too bad. And so I knew it was going to be an issue. And I dreaded it. I put it off for years, and I don't think I put too much pressure on myself for a long time. I just didn't even really consider discussing it with them. And then, finally I talked to my sister, and then I decided to talk to my parents, because it actually went fairly well. And then I decided to talk to my parents, and it went fairly well the first time. But then in subsequent times, it didn't go quite so well. And I don't mean to give the impression that, for some people coming out is really bad, and you know, I mean, if you're a young person who's dependent on your folks, you can even like get thrown out of your house. So, you know, I am not complaining too much about my experience, but there was definitely confusion. There was definitely some offensive things said, that kind of thing. Some just kind of ignorant things said, and overall, I got the impression over the multiple times that I had discussions with them about either or both of these things, because for some reason they tended to intersect when we discussed them. I got the feeling that they didn't understand where it was coming from, and that all of the things that had seemed really gradual to me were actually very sudden and shocking to them. And I think part of this comes to a couple of things I want to say, and I hope that this is my personal experience, but I also hope that, you know, if anybody is considering coming out of the broom closet or the closet, that this could be helpful to you. Of course, always understand that this is my experience, and I'm not necessarily giving like overarching advice for everyone, because every experience is different. But I do think that some of the things I noticed when I came out, one of them was definitely that what seems gradual to you when you're going through it does not seem gradual sometimes to other people. And that's not to say that you should necessarily change your approach. I think it's just something that I wish I had been aware of when I went into it. Was just thinking more about like how this might come off, and just being like prepared. Because I think in some ways I wasn't totally prepared. And I think the second thing I wasn't really prepared for was how many conversations we would have about both of those things. And being bi, I think there's been less conversations about that, because a couple of times my parents have told me things like, you know, well, that's, you know, your choice, and regardless of the like weird slight homophobia there, like, because it's not a choice for me. But regardless of that, I think that is like them recognizing, it's their way of recognizing that I'm an adult, and that I do make my own choices, which I respect that part of it, and I like that part. And we have had fewer conversations about that. But the pagan thing they have a harder time of wrestling with. And sometimes it can make me feel a little bit discombobulated. I've never actually doubted my own path, but it can sometimes make me feel a lot of bad things about myself. Like, am I being selfish? Am I being, is it unrealistic for me to expect that they would be able to accept this about me? And I think that's another piece of advice I would give, is like, no. As easy as I knew this would be an issue for myself, particularly because of my OCD, but I think this can be an issue for everyone. There's like this kind of gaslighting effect where people treat you as if people sometimes treat you when you give them these revelations about yourself, which should be a sign of trust and all of that. People sometimes treat you as though you are giving them something that they shouldn't have to deal with. And I think that, just throw that away. Like, take that. If you ever feel like that, literally just throw it away. Because, like, you should be able to expect everyone in your family circle and friends to accept you as you are, totally, unconditionally. And that may be hard for them. And I think it's one thing to be aware of the ways in which that might be hard for them, but it's another thing to accept that that's okay, or that that's just cool because they can't accept you. That's not cool. And like, you should like not feel that that's cool. And maybe you can't make them accept you. That's the other thing that I want to emphasize about my experience, was that one good thing that came out of it was that I accepted that I could not make people accept me the way I wanted them to. Which for me was a good thing, because it meant I stopped striving for approval in a way that I hadn't been able to before. I really was able to turn off, and I mean, I'm human. I still want my parents' approval. I think everybody wants that. That's just human nature. But I think a lot more of the time I'm able to turn off that part of my brain or recognize when I'm going down that rabbit hole of doing something for their approval or just wanting them to approve of something I'm doing. It has allowed me to accept what is, which I think is like part of like peace, you know, like just accepting reality. And for me, that's part of that has been that they're just not going to necessarily get paganism because it's not Christianity. And for them, that's it. Like, that's the only important thing to know is that it's not Christianity. Like, telling them I'm not worshiping the devil doesn't help. Because, like, to them, it doesn't matter. If it's not Christianity, it's nothing. So when I was able to really accept that, yeah, it helped me stop striving, I think. And it helped me to live my life. This is the next point. It helped me to live my life in a way that was right for me. Like, I really, leaned into my own, I guess, inner wisdom, my intuition, all of the things I was being called toward. I stopped procrastinating about going forward on my path in different directions. I stopped sort of monitoring myself and thinking like, oh, I'm going in too many directions. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I choose something? Whatever. I stopped a lot of that, which I think a lot of it had just been their voice, you know? A lot of it was like, you should already know what you believe, and like that kind of Christian thinking that was still in my head. And it allowed me to pursue my own religious interests. And it allowed me to pursue things in positive terms. And this is something that John Beckett talks about. I have been really helped by some of his resources because he was also evangelical and he is also a Unitarian Universalist pagan. So we have a lot in common. So I will link, I think there's a post that he made about coming out of the broom closet, which I think was really useful to me. And if I find that, I'll link it down below. Or maybe it was about letting go of evangelicalism. I don't know, there might have been two different posts, but I'll put both of them down below. But anyway, he talks about embracing things in positive terms rather than negative terms. Like being able to tell people what you believe, like, I believe this or I do this in my practice, rather than I don't believe X or I don't believe Y, or Y is, wrong or abhorrent to me or whatever, which I think coming out of a difficult religion or even a traumatic religious situation, it can be really easy to just define yourself by what you're not. And I'm also part of an ex-evangelical Facebook group, so it's not like I don't define myself by what I'm not, because I partly do, but I think I do it in a much more healthy way than I used to. Because the fact is that there are plenty of things that I have pursued religiously that have not one thing to do with Christianity or anything that my parents or my family would even know about. They just don't even know thing one about, X or Y practice or X or Y tradition. And so it's like, by limiting yourself to only these negative attributes, you actually limit what you can pursue with authenticity and with your whole heart, and I think that I was limiting myself before, and now I don't feel so limited. Like, I'm human, of course I have moments where I still feel those feelings, but I think I've come further because I came out. I think the last thing I want to say is that I did lose some sort of illusions of approval that I had. I was forced to face. I think that is the definite downside of doing that. I'm not lying at all about that. You definitely probably will be forced I hope you're lucky and I hope you have great friends and family. I hope whoever's watching this, if you are contemplating that, I hope, that you don't have to experience any negativity whatsoever. And that's possible. But, I think a lot of the time you do have to face that there are some people who will not approve of you, who will not like the choice that you made or the things you're pursuing. And, but what I want to say on the other side is that there are people you don't even know who you can be able to connect with more because you make the choice to be more public. So like, when I decided to come out more publicly, I did it on Facebook. And that helped me connect with friends that I had known from the past who I didn't know were queer before. It helped me reconnect with friends who had also recently come out. And it also helped me connect with friends who didn't know I was queer before. Friends and family who are queer, and I knew they were queer, but they didn't know that about me. So it's like, there's all these levels of non-knowledge. It's like, if everyone isn't sort of out and proud, it's harder to know, who the queer people are and who the pagan people are. And I think that's like one of the big benefits that I've gotten is that, by being more out and proud, I, have been able to network and be friends and, you know, with different people. And I've also been able to connect with friends I already had in ways that I didn't know we would ever be able to connect. So that has been really cool. And it's also helped me to accept myself as queer and as pagan. You know, I used to have, particularly about being queer, I think less so about being pagan. Like I had dealt with that decision for so much longer that I didn't, like I said, I never really had doubts, but, I definitely like had like some, I guess, internalized biphobia that I wasn't bi enough to be even talking about it. And I want to say that if you are bi and you're watching this, like that is not true. If you have the potential to be attracted to more than one gender, then you can claim that. And, but you know, there were definitely times when I felt not bi enough or not queer enough, and that was what kept me from talking about that. So it was a little bit different. But yeah, when I finally came out with it, it helped me to accept myself and to realize that whatever I am is enough. And I think that is the thing I want to kind of leave here, as the last thing I say about this, because that's the lesson of Persephone for me. Is whatever you are, whoever you are, like all of those different aspects of you are okay because they exist. Like they exist for a reason, you know, whatever your religious beliefs are, or lack of religious beliefs, like, even if you don't think that they're there for any particular reason, they exist, you know? And denying what exists is like kind of wacky. Like it just hurts you and it like destroys your peace. But like just accepting that like whatever you are is okay. That's the way to like, I don't know, self-acceptance, I think. And yeah, to me, that's the lesson of Persephone, is that like, even if you have really different parts of yourself, like she has Demeter and Hades that she has to spend 6 months, per year with, or gets to, or wants to, we don't really know. And that to me is the hinge. Like, the story is that I think one of the understandings of the story is that she has to go back and forth, that this is somehow compelled. But like, what if these are just different parts of herself, that she embraces, and to other people they seem contradictory, and maybe to her sometimes it seems like emotional whiplash, you know, going between, or emotional or mental whiplash going between these two very different people. But I think the moment where you say like, yes, Hades is my husband, Demeter is my mother, like, everybody get over it. This is where I live. This is who I am. It may be tough. It may not always be easy. But accepting it, you know, is like, I think a bit freeing. As hard as things are, just saying like, I am the hinge. I am the thing in the middle that unites all of this. No one else needs to approve of it. No one needs to think it all goes together or that's coherent. It's all on me. I organize and order and make my life. And I think that is really freeing, and it has been freeing for me. And I hope if anyone is thinking about coming out of the broom closet, that you can have a similar experience eventually, even if it's hard in the beginning. And yeah, and having supportive friends really helps. Like I said, some of those people that I was able to connect with, I could not have done it without them. So I would also say that, like, seek out your support networks. And if anybody else has interesting stories about coming out of the broom closet or coming out of the closet that you would like to share, I would love to hear that kind of stuff down below. I would love to hear comments, any other good resources that you've read about this sort of thing, because I still love to read about it, even though I've already done it. Yeah, like anything like that would be great to hear. And I guess also in the way of thinking forward, I wanted to say that I am considering making review videos, or at least short little review videos maybe, about both the Spirit of the Celtic Gods and Goddesses and the Crooked Path. And if you want one about the Way of the Rose, definitely tell me, because nobody has said that yet. So I don't know if there's any interest. Also, I got a few new decks, which I'm really excited about. Actually, I have one right here. The Arcana of Astrology, which I'm like psyched out of my mind about. It's so good. It helps you like learn, astrology, but it can also do like readings about astrology. And I've barely used it yet, but I think it seems really, really exciting. And I got the mass market edition, which has houses, and it has cards for the houses that the planets can be in, and it also has a guidebook. So very excited about that. And I also have an oracle that I just got called the Magic and Mediums Oracle. So yeah, I'm gonna I'll probably put something on Instagram asking if people have an opinion about which one they'd like to see a review of, or if you'd like to see a review of one of those. So yeah, exciting times. And I'll probably be doing all kinds of like outdoor witchy stuff that I will want to report about soon as well. So until then, see you guys next time.